Everyone, welcome and thank you so much for coming. I see some familiar faces and some new ones, so thank you so much for coming here today. And welcome to this webinar on From Classroom Chat to Real World Talk, AI that builds confident communicators. I really feel lucky to be able to talk with you all today. AI is a very hot topic, and sometimes it just kind of comes down to some cool tools and maybe solve problems that don't exist, right? And so one of the things I'm really excited about with what I'm going to share with you is, to me, this is a way that AI is solving a problem that I feel really existed. Like when I was a teacher, 100%, this was my pain points. And I will see if you feel the same way today. So we're going to talk about interpersonal speaking. So that is what we're going to kind of talk about. That is our focus, and that is what is going to happen with this webinar today. So I really do appreciate you all being here. So if you don't know me, my name is Michelle Ola, and I've been in world languages for a long time as a teacher, as a district support person. I've worked in a company working with pedagogy and professional development. I would love to connect with you if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, or you can email me or check out my website if you have other questions. I'm going to tell you more, and Ben's going to tell you more about Speakology as well in a little bit. But my goal is to support you as you are supporting students in the classroom. And our goals are all the same. We want them on that path to proficiency, and we want them using real language in the real world. And so that is what we're going to talk about today. So my goal is to really talk about how we can move our learners, our language learners, from performance, which is wonderful, and that's what happens in the classroom, but how do we get them out into the real world, speaking with real people in that messy language that is life, that is different than what we do in our classroom. So how do we bridge that gap between performance that they do in our classrooms and proficiency out there in the real world? Also, how can we move them from predictable to some extent to more spontaneous? Because again, I know as a language learner, as somebody who travels, guess what? Those people out there in the real world that I'm speaking to, they didn't learn the same words that I learned. They don't have the same script that I did. So it's messy and it's complicated and it's spontaneous. And so how do we move them from more predictable applications of the language to more spontaneous sort of interactions? And I feel this one. I feel this one a lot. I felt this when I was a language learner and I learned my language, the second language, and I learned Spanish way back in a long time ago in Minnesota in my Spanish classes, but also when I tried to learn ASL and when I practiced and tried to learn a little bit of Chinese. How do you move from anxious and nervous and afraid to open up your mouth to being confident and being okay with making mistakes and risks? And these are some of the things that we're going to kind of dig into today. And so my goal is for us to think about how this tool in particular, but also just good pedagogy, good teaching, good using of interpersonal speaking tasks. This is just one way that can kind of help us. Okay. So before we start, so in the chat, if you don't mind, we want to start at the same spot. So we say a lot of buzzwords in education in general. We say a lot of buzzwords in world language or dual language or language classrooms. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page because somebody could be brand new to this field. So what is interpersonal communication? You don't have to have a whole definition, but what are some words that come into your mind when you hear interpersonal communication? All right, so in the chat, chatting with someone over coffee. Awesome. Talking to each other. Negotiation, text messaging, communication, back and forth, unrehearsed, perfect, real, spontaneous, context, conversation. Absolutely. Feelings, debate. I love those words. And if we just had a boring definition of a lot of those words wouldn't have came up. Exchanging messages, meaningful conversation. I like this one, full of errors. Absolutely. How many of you mess up in your first language and just like, I just don't know that word? It happens to me a lot more than it used to. Let me just tell you that. But again, like that's life. You don't know the right word. You say something, you're like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. It's sort of messy. Spontaneous conversations. Absolutely. Stop and start sentences. All right. Fantastic. Effective filter some words. Spontaneous. Absolutely. So that's what we're talking about. So it is, as you mentioned, somebody's mentioned texting. So it is in speaking and writing. And all of those things that you said is what it is. So it's two-way communication. All right, negotiating meeting between participants. If I don't unmute you and I just talk and you have no opportunity to respond, which is kind of what's happening during a webinar, that's not interpersonal. In the chat, however, as I'm reading what you're reading, as you're clarifying with each other, that is interpersonal. It's spontaneous and unpredictable. I know what I'm going to say today. I don't know what y'all are going to say in the chat. It's spontaneous, it's unpredictable, it's interactive. It requires real listening and engagement. You have to pay attention. You have to find out. You can't just listen to respond. You have to listen to respond correctly and appropriately. Meaning driven, focus on exchange and ideas and information. Y'all had all of these in the chat already. Using strategies is the other thing, because it has to do with, what was that? I didn't hear you, or I don't know that word, or skibbity what? Like, you have to clarify. You have to rephrase things. You have to ask follow-up questions. One of my pet peeves that I always mention whenever I talk to language teachers, and that is when we tell kids how to say, or students, learners, how to say, how are you? And then what do I say? And what's the usual response? Oh, then the other person's going to say muy bien y tú, or something like that, right? Well, wonder if the other person says, oh, I'm terrible. I'm just having a really bad day. Do we actually teach our learners how to respond to that? We don't. We give them the perfect circumstance, and that's not always what happens, right? So that is what interpersonal communication is. Awesome. All right, so now here's my question, and I have my own thoughts about this, but I want to hear yours as well. What are some of the challenges with interpersonal speaking in particular? We've got our own challenges with writing, but we're just talking speaking today, in language classrooms. What are some of the things that make it challenging to have spontaneous conversations, all of that real world context? Fear, absolutely. Anxiety, student anxiety, absolutely. Hard to do one-on-one, lack of confidence. Yep, students not wanting to make a mistake. They have limited vocabulary. Okay, good. Lack of vocabulary, fear of messing up, pressure to do well. Absolutely. I think I saw someone say leveling up and asking questions. So it's not just passive, like they're responding all of the time. Absolutely. Judgment from others. Hardest part, just getting them to do it. Practice. Not listening. They're not really listening. They're listening so that they can say their line, and they're not listening to what the message is necessarily. Absolutely. These are all things that I have felt and seen and talked to teachers about as well. Challenges that I in particular, kind of experienced while I was thinking about this, and this is both me as a second language learner as well as the students in my classroom. I think we have typical kind of predictable prompts or engagement that we have in our classroom. So we do a turn and talk, and we have a certain formula. Partner A says this, and partner B kind of does this, and partner A responds. But in real life, partner A might say multiple things, and then partner B has to pick one of them to respond to. So I think in our classroom, in order to scaffold learning, things are very kind of predictable, and so that can be hard for students to get that spontaneity then when they have real interactions with people outside the classroom. I think sometimes I over scaffolded tasks. So I would give them all the stuff they needed. I would give them sentence starters, and I would give them sentence frames, and I would give them word walls, and I would give them all these great resources and tools, which absolutely they need at one point. But how do we gradually take those things away so that when they don't have those, and it is much more difficult to get your point across, what other skills do they have? What other interpersonal skills, essentially, do they know how to ask a question? Do they know how to clarify? Do they know how to grab a piece of paper and draw something if they don't know the word for it, etc.? I think, so that, again, I didn't necessarily take away the scaffolds and make them really struggle and really make mistakes. Because when they get out in the real world, they're going to struggle and they're going to make mistakes. So how do they get over that fear of making mistakes? Well, they have to make a lot of them, and they have to feel comfortable making a lot of them. The longer I'm in another country and I kind of okay, I have to communicate. It's not going to be perfect. I just accept that and I start communicating. I communicate more. As I communicate more, I get better, etc. Another problem or another challenge that I had was just limited time. Like even in the most communicative classroom, how many minutes does a student get a chance to interact and speak in interpersonal mode? It's hard. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. So again, along with that, when they're in their classroom, they might have limited vocabulary. And as a teacher, I can help them. If I'm having a one-on-one conversation, I can help them along. I can kind of ask them, the same question, or I can ask it in a different way, or I can explain what I mean. When they're talking to other students, that's not so easy. There might be uneven or too even of kind of abilities that it's not useful or helpful for the students. Number one, anxiety, fear of judgment, fear of making mistakes, absolutely. And then the other problem or challenge that I had is how do you give in the moment or even any sort of feedback so that they can grow? And I don't mean just like correcting every mistake. I just mean clarifying, asking questions, just kind of giving them ideas of how they're doing and how they can improve. So giving that feedback in the moment when you have 50 students, maybe 30 students, 20 students in your classroom is really, really, really difficult. I see difficulty with pronunciation, intonation. Yep. Student understanding each other's mistakes and code switching, so not negotiating meaning. That's a great point. So there are a lot of questions. So when I met Ben at FFLA, my Florida Foreign Language Conference, and I started to kind of look at what they're doing. When I talked with him way back in October of last year, the program that they have now is like just amazingly different. So if you checked them out before and you haven't recently, you'll definitely want to see. And so I'm going to show you some of the things. So Speakology AI is an on-demand speaking partner. And basically there's any topic, anytime, you can create your own that they can talk with, or there's a bunch of pre-made ones. They get feedback that they can use right away, as well as that they can reflect on and then improve and kind of do that. I love that there's people that have been using some of this in their classrooms and that, they're really happy and excited about it. And then, of course, there's always restrictions and things that might keep you from using this, but maybe you pull it up in class and you do some demos or you do something. There might be some ways that. I just want you to think about how you could use some of these things, or could you use some of these things that I'm going to talk about in your classroom. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about 5 strategies to give students more opportunities to speak in spontaneous but low stakes situations, right? So there's not this high pressure. When you get out in the real world and you're lost and your GPS is not working, that is a high pressure situation, right? And so we want to give them opportunities in low stakes where, it's okay. You're just talking to an AI speaker. Okay. They're not, it's just different. So we're going to talk about 5 different ways. All right. And I know I'm going fast because I want to hit it all. And I also want to make sure that I keep it in this time frame, but Ben is going to stay on afterwards and do a Q&A. So you can ask him specific questions. He can pull up, I'll screen share and show you some things, and you can talk with Ben and I after the official presentation is done if you would like as well. So kind of hold tight if you want to do that. Okay, so one of the things is just you don't have to create lessons around everything and do a whole curriculum. You can just give students the opportunity to do some choice pre-made video calls. Those are ones that are already in Speakology. Talk about what they like to do, describe their best friend. We'll kind of pull some of those up and you can see them. Or you could make some custom calls, video calls that they could do as well. And we're going to do one in a second. When they choose these, they get instant feedback. So you don't have to go in and look at the feedback. You could just have them reflect on that feedback. You can have them, it's also going to give students, so it's going to give students some feedback like, you did really great using descriptive words, but be careful, you might want to check the endings or something like that. So some real clear feedback. And I'm going to show you different ways they can do that as well. And there's also a transcript so that you can see it and the students can see it. And it'll have what they said, the recording of what they said as well. So somebody mentioned pronunciation and intonation. So they can listen to their conversations and you can listen to that side of the conversation as well. So that's one really kind of simple, easy way to go ahead and get started. I think we're going to try something. So I did queue up a video. If the video doesn't work, but we're going to try and go ahead and go live here and do one of the video calls so you can see what it looks like. With all of you on my bandwidth of the internet, we'll see how it works. Okay, so everyone should see. This is the home page, and this is for a level 2 honors course. This is just kind of a demo course. And you'll see that there are all of these video calls. So there's a ton of video calls, and this is where I was talking about you could just choose, students could just choose in a particular topic a video call. Okay, I'm gonna let's just pick let's just do a nice easy one. Here, what do you like to do in your free time? And hopefully you'll be able to hear this as well. Hola, ¿cómo estás hoy?
Hola, estoy muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú, cómo estás?
Estoy...
Cuéntame, ¿qué te gusta hacer en tu... Entiendo.
Repito, por favor.
Claro, te pregunto de nuevo, ¿qué te gusta hacer en tu tiempo libre? ¿Te gusta más leer o jugar en tu tiempo libre?
Me gusta más leer. Okay, so that was just a short little something. You could kind of see what was happening there. Now, there was a couple things that you might have noticed. One, did you notice how she corrected me in the language in real time? That's because the teacher chose to do it that way. Okay. There is a way that the teacher also can choose not to give that feedback, or the AI can decide how to give the feedback. So there's a bunch of controls that you can use on that as well. So after this conversation, I'm going to now it was super short, so it says it doesn't have enough data to provide an accurate assessment. Okay, and that's just because I didn't really say that much. But you can see the conversation that we did have is right here. And I can, hola, ¿cómo estás hoy? So I can go ahead and you can hear those conversation prompts as well. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like. So that's a live kind of version of it, so you can kind of see what it would look like. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back over here, and I'll show you kind of how we... And Ben, actually, do you want to go ahead and drop in the chat the video that has your longer video? So there's a video on YouTube. I'm sure you can just search it as well, but you can see another demo, and you're going to get a free demo account at the end here as well from Ben's. But you can go ahead and see a little bit more. Okay, so let me put this a little bigger so you can see it. So this is an example. Oops, wrong one. So this is an example of feedback that came from another conversation. Okay, so you can see, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. You can see that it gave an actful rating right here. It gave what were some of the words that we talked about, and then it gave some specific feedback of what that might be here. And I'm not sure if you can see it, so let me see if I can do a little bit bigger. There we go. So you can see some of the key vocabulary that happened in that conversation. You can see some of the grammar, language structures that we talked about, and some of the feedback here that you can see. So in order to improve your Spanish conversation, try using full sentences. Instead of saying this, you could say, sí, me gusta mucho la música mexicana. So it's going to give you some tips as well. It goes into incorporating question words. For example, instead of just saying this, it can give some suggestions on what else to say. It says work on expanding your vocabulary. So it gives you some really concrete feedback that students can use as they are working and improving on their language. Oops. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and then again, you saw the transcript as well. So you can see that you can listen to that conversation as well, and you and the students can see that. Okay, so one of the things, and I'm just realizing this is a little too small, so I'm trying to make it a little bit bigger here. Notice here it says corrections. This is a global setting, and you can choose AI interpreted. So Speakology AI model interprets when to correct the user, or you can correct any English used. So if they use English, they can just correct that, or you could have them correct all errors. So it kind of just depends on what you want. There's more specific feedback and correction options when you get into individual assignments, but this is kind of global. You cannot have it display the AI scores on that summary page if you don't want to. You can change these grading kind of thresholds as well. Now, if you want like really in-depth, support from the Speakology team and a training, they have that available for you. That's not really what we're doing. I just kind of want to show you some of the cool things that I've found that I think are incredibly helpful as I'm thinking about this. So another strategy you can use is really to use these conversations to build confidence. So build confidence. They can do these, for example, before they have a real conversation in class. Okay. So in order to prepare for a conversation, in order to kind of get those listening skills a little bit better, you can have them listen to it and still have them do it in class. It's not that we don't ever want them to talk to their classmates. We just want them to have multiple uses in practice. So you could have students complete this video several times, because every time it's going to be different. Every time their feedback is going to be different. The questions that the avatar asks them, the questions that they ask the avatar back, right? So there's going to be different feedback every single time. Okay. There's also something that is really cool that I'll show you in a minute, and that is that in the beginning they might need more support. So just like I can share in a Zoom call, I can also screen share. I can upload an image that they then use to talk about. So we could upload an authentic menu, and the avatar and the student could talk about that menu, for example. They could pretend to order from that menu. So there's a bunch of screen sharing. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And then the other thing, this is what I just found, and I texted Ben and I'm like, I didn't know that you could do this. This is so cool, is that you can change the setting for who carries the conversation. So in the beginning, the avatar might be the one that asks all the questions, and they're the ones and they're leading the conversation. The other option is it's mixed, so the avatar will lead some, but also pause and let the speaker do it. And then you can put a setting where the student or the learner is the one that initiates and carries the conversation. When I saw that, I thought that is super cool, because we don't want our learners to always get stuck in that receptive, have to listen and respond, because otherwise they're going to stand in front of a stranger expecting the stranger to just constantly ask them things to find things out. They need to express themselves as well. So I just thought that was really, really cool. Okay, so this is an example of how you can make a custom video call. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. Hopefully you can see it. So I can go in, I can pick a topic, I can pick the proficiency level, I can go ahead and type an introduction text that I want the speaking avatar to say. I can choose what example vocabulary that I want in that. Okay, so I just put my high level words in there. And I can talk about what sort of tenses I want specifically to focus on in this conversation. I also can give some example questions that I would want, like a question that I want to make sure that they know how to answer, right? That I want to make sure that is brought up in that conversation. I can do numerous ones, so I can add a bunch of questions. This is where I can upload an image, okay? So I can upload an image of something that I want them to talk about or I want them to describe. I think this is an amazing time to add authentic resources into this conversation. And then over here, let me move over a little bit. Oops, I keep trying this a little bit better. Here's where it says, this is where it says who leads the conversation. Does AI, is it mixed, or is the student lead the conversation? Again, I just think that is a really cool feature. So here's just an example. So for one about my favorite person, was hi. I've got, today we're going to talk about a special person, or somebody that's special to you, some different questions. Here's the vocabulary that I want them to sort of use. Also notice there's this little generate with AI. So you can generate vocabulary and then you just adapt it. Okay, so in this corner right down there, it says generate with AI, and then you can just get rid of the ones you don't want, add the few that you do want, because some of the topics are pretty, okay. We've got what verb tenses, specific questions, and here's an example of what that screen sharing could look like. So they're going to describe these people, and so we have a picture of that. You can add some images. Pretty cool stuff. This is, if I didn't get any farther than this is the stuff I really want you to see, because this is really great. And this is the part about corrections. So when I create my own custom video, notice I want feedback to occur in the student's native language. Maybe they're at the level where they need the feedback. They're not going to understand it if it's in the target language. It needs to be in their home language. Right? So that's one option. Notice I can say, do not correct mistakes. I just want them to practice without worrying about that. correct only if the student does not use the target language, correct only really glaring errors or in less, and so have just less frequent. You don't want them always. I might say, you know what, they're level 3. They need to hear all of their sort of that. Personally, I would want to have my errors corrected at the end, right? Or then let the AI decide when to correct, okay? And then this is another one that I think is fairly recent that, again, like really got me excited, was we all know that, yeah, explicit feedback is great, but also you could say you want to recast or ask for clarification as a way to bring those errors up, to talk about them. So you could have, so recast is like restating it in the correct way, or you could ask for the avatar could just ask for clarification, and then the student kind of thinks about it and goes, oh yeah, she didn't understand because I said something wrong. Or you can let the AI also decide. So these are all kind of key things that you all can change and can kind of do. The last couple ones are super quick, and then we're going to get to Ben's and your questions if you have them. Formative checks with AI. So another option that you have is just a custom quiz. It's very straightforward. You can put in a question, the students answer the question, they go to another question. It gives them real-time feedback of how they did. You could use these as quick exit tickets or just quick sort of assessments if you wanted to kind of see where they were at. I'll show you where this is. So you can have a quiz. Notice you have an introductory message. Question 1, you can say how much you want that question weighted. Question 2, how much it's weighted. Just a little formative assessment. It's a great way to kind of see. Super easy. Students could go home and do it. Good question about the rubrics. We'll send that to Ben. And notice here's another one, allow multiple attempts or not to allow multiple attempts. All right. So again, this might be a good pre-activity before they have a conversation. These are some of the kind of questions you might hear it from the avatar and kind of work with that. All right. The next one, let me go. I think this is really important as well, is you can use these features to build stamina with things. So getting longer, because again, I think in class, we don't have the time. We have to kind of just give them a certain amount of time, and we can't let them all talk for lengths of time necessarily. And so you can do layered prompts where maybe the first time I do it, I have less vocabulary, I focus on less structures and less time that they were going to do it. Then we might stretch out the amount of time or the amount of utterances that we want them to do as they've, practiced this multiple times. And then you can also do some gamification or some challenges, like can you have a conversation, a back and forth conversation for a minute, or let's try a minute and a half. Can you make sure you ask 5 questions? And these aren't tick, tick, tick the boxes. These are just ways to kind of make it more fun, engaging, but also to build up those communication skills and to build up that stamina that they're going to need when they are in the real world talking. And so here's what I was saying. Let me scan. Whoops. Every time I try and move it closer. There we go. So when you do an assignment, for example, you can have no limit, meaning there's no specific time the assignment is done. Because you can say, it's done in 1 minute by time, or you can do by how many utterances they have, so how many phrases they say, and that can be how that's done. So again, little by little, you can move by having a shorter time limit on an assignment, but then stretching that a little bit farther. And I know I'm not leaving a lot of time for questions, and we're almost done. The last one, and I think this is really, really an important one. I think this gives us a chance to really let students reflect and re-record and re-practice, right? Or redo it again, right? And we know that the more times they do something, the more it's kind of going to be. So reviewing transcripts, they can review their transcripts. I think number one, the thing I would ask them is, do you agree or disagree with the ACTFL level that you were given? Because there's been a couple times when I'm like, that was pretty generous. Or there was one time I'm like, darn it, I really feel like I should have been higher on that, right? That's great, because that also gets them thinking critically that this is, this is fallible. So why or why not? And give evidence. Well, I don't think I'm a novice low because I was using full sentences and I asked a question or something. So it gives us a conversation. They can start identifying their next steps. They have all the data you have in front of them, so they can start making those decisions of what they would need to do to grow. They can see their best attempts, so they can see that they're getting better over time, and they can note that growth Okay. And so that, I think, is a really great way to use this resource as well. So one other thing I was just going to show you really quick, and then we're going to get to some questions, is, for example, over here we do see a type of an assignment. Here, remember, we had the no limit by time. Also, you could just set one up that is reoccurring. So they're going to do this same assignment, let's say every week for, for the whole unit. At the beginning, it's going to be very short and basic. But by the end, they've probably developed quite a bit more vocabulary, more confidence, and more abilities in the language. And so they can actually see and reflect on that progress. So my key takeaways with this, again, is more reps is more, they're more ready. The more times they can encounter spontaneous language, the better they're going to be able to handle it when they have it in the real world. AI can help support these conversations that they're going to have in the real world and still not be real world conversations. So you want to make sure we understand that you're not talking to a real person. You are going to talk to one when you get in the real world, but I feel like they're going to be more open, more brave, have more confidence to be able to do that through these kind of experiences that they can have before that. I think it just gives them a better